Good morning, class. This is your day 4 of week 7 of ELA. The directions here say read the questions one time before rereading the story, Yosemite, and the badge, so that you know what you're looking for. And that's always good practice. We learned that in class, that you take a look at the questions, you take a look at the choices. You can even choose that choice that you think is the correct one, but then always you go back and reread that text to prove that you indeed chose the correct choice, okay, or answer. And then it says use the story to answer the reading questions from day 4. Quick check and underline. Okay, this is something that I will be looking for. We always underline where you're finding the answers in the text. It's always good practice. That's a way of to double check that you are answering correctly, and also um, it's good practice for finding evidence. And then it says here that space has been provided on day 4 extended responses worksheet to write your answers to the last 2 questions. So on day 4 you answer multiple choice questions, and then there's 2 questions that you need to write to answer, okay? And they give you a little empty space after the multiple choice questions in case you need more room to answer the last 2 questions, okay, where you had to write a little paragraph. And that would be this: using day 4 extended responses worksheet, answer the last 2 questions from the quick check. And then we already talked about this, that your independent reading is going to be reading the pages of the book Wonder that I put in the checklist, okay? And then, of course, don't forget about your PE. So let's go on to day 4 then, and I am going to answer the first couple of questions just to review. How is it that we go back to the text and we underline or find the context clues that helped us answer the question. Okay, so instructions, it says read each question carefully and choose the best answer. Sometimes there's more than one good answer, but by going back to the text, we always choose the best one. Okay, number 1 says, why is John Muir famous? And then A says, so he's famous because he wrote many books, or he's famous because he's called the father of the US National Park System. Or C, he's famous because he helped people understand that nature is important. Or maybe it's a D, maybe it's all of the above. Maybe it is A, B, and C. Okay, so I am going to be looking for, why is John Muir famous? Why is he famous? So let me go back to the text. And I do remember, because I already read this, now I am rereading. I do remember that on page 5, let me try to grab a pencil here. I do remember that on page 5, that's where it mentions him for the first time, I believe. It says, after I finished the book, I put it on my shelf next to some other books by my favorite author, John Muir, the famous conservationist and naturalist. He did so much to conserve nature that some people call him the father of our national park system. So here I can see actually several of the choices for why John Muir is famous. It says that he was an author because he wrote other books. Okay, the boy had other books written by John Muir. So, okay, so he's famous because he wrote multiple books. And then it says that he was the famous conservationist and naturalist. And then it says that he did so much to conserve nature that people call him the father of our national park systems. Okay, so I can see that he did write many books. He was called the father of our national park system. And he did. He worked hard to conserve nature. And then it says on the other page here, it says, I thought John, I thought how proud John Muir might have been to know that a kid could help preserve Yosemite years after he had written about the need for people to preserve it. So he was writing about how people need to conserve or preserve nature. So he is encouraging people to preserve nature. So let's take a look at the choices again. So why is he famous? Because he wrote many books. Yes. Oh, where's my pen? Now I'm going back and forth between two documents. So I had to get used to grabbing my pen each time. So he wrote many books. Yes. He's called the father of the U.S. National Park System. Yes. He helped people understand that nature is important. I would say yes, because he was writing about how people need to preserve nature. So I would say yes. So then actually I think that by going back to the text, I just proved that the correct choice would be D, because it's all of the above. Okay. A, B, and C are the reasons why John Muir is famous. Okay, and so that's how we would answer these questions. Okay, reading the question choices, going back to the text, underlining, coming back and double checking. Okay, number 2 here says, what is a conservationist? Is it A, someone who recycles things? Or B, is a conservationist a person who tries to protect nature? Or C, someone who cuts down trees and builds houses? Or D, a person who tries to track down wild animals? What is a conservationist? So really quickly, let's go back to the text. And because I read this text already, well, actually look at it on page 5. It has the word conservationist. So let's see if we can figure out the meaning based on context clues. And then also don't forget that if you have a glossary, it's always a good idea to go and check in there, because most likely the word is defined in the glossary, especially if it is bold, written with bold letters as it is here. So what is a conservationist? It says, my favorite author, John Muir, the famous conservationist and naturalist. And then it says, so he was a conservationist, and then it says he did so much to conserve nature that some people call him the father of our national park system. So he was a conservationist. He did so many things to conserve nature. And then on the other side, what else does he say? I thought how proud John Muir might have been to know that a kid could help preserve Yosemite years after he had written about the need for people to preserve it. To preserve what? To preserve Yosemite or nature. So, what is a conservationist? It sounds to me like someone who works to conserve nature or preserve nature, as in preserving the park Yosemite. Okay, let's double check and see if we can find that word in the glossary. Okay, here we go. Conservationist, one who works to protect the environment. Okay, so with that knowledge, let's go back to the choices and see what the choices are. All right, so it was here. Okay. So what is a conservationist? Someone who recycles things. I did not read anything about someone recycling things. A person who tries to protect nature. Yes, I would say so. The glossary used the word environment. But environment is just another word for nature. So someone who tries to protect the environment or to protect nature. I would say so far B seems like the right choice. Let me check the others, because there's always a best choice, remember? C says someone who cuts down trees. Is that protecting nature or the environment? I don't think so. Or D, a person who tries to track down wild animals. Well, wild animals sounds like nature, but in the text, it didn't say anything about John Muir tracking down animals. It said that he worked and did things to conserve or to preserve nature. So I think that the right choice is going to be B. Okay, and then again, notice how we went back and underlined context clues and also looked at the glossary. So that's how you would answer these questions. Okay, um, thank you for going back to the text and looking for those pieces of evidence. And this is the space, the extra space that they talked about providing so that you can answer the last two questions here for day 4. Okay, your extended response, as it says directions. It says write your answers to the extended response questions from the quick check quiz on this page. And so here's question 11. So this is going to be a little paragraph, okay? Because you have to answer a question and you have to provide evidence. It says, whose attitude changed most in this story? So we had two characters. We had Nana and we had the boy. I forget the name of the boy. We need to answer whose attitude changed the most. So one of the two felt a certain way at the beginning, okay? And then by the end of the story, they felt differently, okay? Their attitude, their feelings, their thoughts changed. We need to go back and reread whose attitude changed the most in the story, whose feelings or thoughts changed. And then we need to support the answer with two facts from the story. So right away, you can actually begin answering the question, turning the question into a statement. Whose attitude changed the most in this story? So I would say it. I would turn it into a statement and say blank's attitude changed the most in the story. Okay, so there you are answering the question. Okay, so you're going to put Nana's attitude or the boy's attitude changed the most in the story. Okay, and there you're answering the question. Now we need to provide the two facts. Maybe you can go on to explain that person's attitude at the beginning. So you could begin at the beginning. You can say at the beginning of the story, blank, so you're going to put Nana or the boy, blank felt blank, and you're going to say how that person felt, okay, about the main topic in that story. Okay, and then since you have to provide two pieces of evidence or two facts, you could say, for example, on page blank, it states, and then you say what it states on that one page, showing how this person felt at the beginning. And so that would be your first fact. Okay, you need two. Then you can, once you explain how the person felt at the beginning, then you can go on to say by the end of the story, so by the end of the story, and then you can say blank felt, and then now you're going to say how they felt, okay, which is going to show how their attitude changed. And then again, you cite some evidence by saying on page blank it states, and then you tell me what it states that shows how that person's attitude changed from the beginning. And so that would be it. Again, if you need more space because you have more sentences to write, go back and use these. You can just number, like number 11. That way we know that writing belongs to question number 11. And then if you needed more space for 12, then number it, and that way we know that goes with your answer for number 12, okay? Which is the last one. It says, according to the text, what is talus and how is it made? Two questions. So what is talus? Right away you can begin turning that question into a statement. What is talus? Talus is, and then you're going to explain what it is, okay? Now, if you don't remember, like I kind of forgot, then you go back and check what is talus, and then you explain. And then don't, it's not just that, then you're going to explain how it is made. And notice that number 12 doesn't say use evidence from the text, but because you are explaining what it is and how it is made. I am pretty sure that most of us didn't know at the beginning, and we are not making it up. We are actually explaining based on what we read. So you want to explaining your answer, that you, or showing your answer that you got that information from the text. And that's when you say, according to the text, or on page blank, it said, okay. And so again, thank you for being so hardworking and making sure that you're going back. I do remember that I read about talus. I think it was page 7. Oh, the pencil again. Page 17, I believe, that we read about talus. Okay, so we took the shuttle to Happy Isles Nature Center, where there were 4 trails teaching about the areas for different environments: forest, river, talus, and fen. Okay, but we need to find out what talus is. A park ranger took us on the talus trail. We had no idea what talus was, but soon found out that talus is made up of the rocks that pile up at the bottom of a cliff from rock falls. So it sounds to me like here we have what it is, okay? If you don't understand it, you have to read it and reread it, look at the images, and try to understand it so that you can put it in your own words when you explain it in your writing, okay? So that would be question 1. There was also, how is it made? So you're going to need to continue reading here, because that is how you're going to find out how it is made, okay? How is talus made. And then underline, circle, do whatever you need, and then you come back and finish up your response here. Okay, explaining what talus says and how it is made. And I think that is it for day 4. Okay,